Hey, this is George Anderson here from intelligentrunning.com. Tomorrow night I am giving a short presentation to a Run England leaders forum over in Oxford, and I'm not entirely sure what to expect yet, but I've been asked to give a presentation on a topic that would be of interest to the majority of people. So I've chosen speed and how to run faster. So I've called it the need for speed. And as I was going through it, I was thinking, this is something that could be really beneficial for many other people to see. So I thought I'd quickly whiz through it today and get it up on the site so you can benefit yourself. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to talk about the theory of faster running, and I'm actually going to use this to geek out a little bit and to draw some lovely graphs. This is on my chalkboard theme going on here. So I want to talk to you about the theory of faster running, how we can actually train ourselves with our runs to get faster, because it's one of the problems that a lot of us have, is that we just don't know how to get faster. So let's take a look at this first graph. We've got along the bottom there running speed, and then along the top we've got RPE, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit today, is the rate of perceived exertion. So how hard you feel like you're working. Now this is like your overall intensity. So not just how much your legs are aching or your lungs are burning, it's the whole package. It's everything that you feel. And we're going to talk about that on a 1 to 10 scale. So let's take a look and draw the first line on this graph then. So hopefully this will sound reasonably logical to you, but if you imagine, if you increase your running speed, then your rate of perceived exertion is also going to go up. It's going to be proportional. So the faster you run, the harder it becomes. Make sense? Hope so. Let's take a look at something else here, another graph. Just bear that one in mind for a moment. If you've got running time along the bottom, so how long you can keep a particular speed for, and then the speed up along the y-axis there, you draw a line on that one, and you're going to get a line going in the other direction. And again, hopefully this is reasonably logic. If you're running at a very high speed, so towards the top end of that y-axis, that vertical line, then you're not going to be able to keep that going for very long. But conversely, if you drop the speed down towards the bottom, and then you're going to be able to hopefully run a little bit longer. And again, hopefully that makes sense to most people. Now, the problem I find most runners tell me, especially beginner runners, is that they only have one speed. And that's normally down here somewhere. So kind of you feel like you can only go at that one pace, which is fine, because it means that it allows you to go for a reasonable length of time, whether it's 10 minutes, 30 or 60 minutes. But you can keep on going if you keep the speed nice and slow. Okay, so that's fine. But what I try to challenge people to, in terms of mindset, what I try and challenge is that if you were to say, instead of running for half an hour, imagine you only ran for, say, 30 seconds. So instead of 30 minutes, you're running for 30 seconds. See right down here, you see that line on the x-axis now down towards the crossing point. So that's how long you're running for. If you take that line up, it's going to intersect with that line in the graph, and then you can see that actually you're going to be running a fair bit faster. Now, none of this is proportional or I'm not looking at absolute figures here. But hopefully you can see that if you cut the length of time that you're running down, you will be able to run faster. Okay, so bear that in mind for a moment, because I want to talk about lactic threshold briefly as well. And this is an important point. This is the physiology behind running faster, so an important part of theory. I've talked about this before, but let me explain it again. We've got time along the bottom again, so how long we go for, and heart rate now up the side. I'm going to go with heart rate. That's kind of proportional to intensity as well, but I'm going to use heart rate because I want to talk about lactic threshold in a second. Now, most of our runs, you're just going out for a bit of a trot, a bit of a jog, it's going to look a bit like this. This is called the aerobic curve. So you go up, you warm up, your heart rate raises, and then you hold it fairly steady, and then it drops back down the other side as you cool down and finish your run. So that's generally what happens when you go for a run. Now, if you just practice doing this type of running, if you just go for long, slow runs, all that happens is, hang on a second, one moment, I'm getting ahead of myself there. So here we are. So just above that line is this lactic threshold, as I mentioned a moment ago. So you've got this lactic threshold, which is, it's an actual point at which your body is producing more lactic acid than you're able to get rid of. Or it's producing it at the same rate, rather. That's the threshold. So below that level, where most of us do the vast majority of our training, you're producing lactic acid and you're able to get rid of it at the same rate or quicker than you're producing it. So you don't get this buildup. You don't start to feel that burning leg sensation, which is fine. If we go back to this graph here, you can see that that speed is low and the length of time is long. So we've got this graph here where we're just able to keep on going. And this is what I was trying to say earlier. If you keep on training like that, then you will just get better at running slowly for longer periods of time. So you just end up increasing the length of this aerobic zone here. So what can we do about this? Because what we really want to do is to learn how to run faster. But if we run faster and we go over that line, then we're going to come into all sorts of trouble. So we need to be quite clever with this. The good news is that lactic threshold is a movable line. It can increase. With special type of training, we can increase that line. So how do we do that? And that's what we want to do, increase the line. How do we do that? There are a couple of ways we can do it, which I'll tell you about in just a second. But you can see, if I just go back, actually this is quite an important point, because if I go to this line here, you can see that there's a bit of a distance, a bit of a gap between the aerobic line where we're holding that point, that running intensity, the heart rate, and the lactic threshold. And we want to keep that. So if we can increase the lactic threshold, if we can take that line up, then it stands to reason that now if we were to keep the same intensity, we're working at a much lower capacity or a lower percentage of our potential capacity. So conversely, we can increase that level that we're working at, so we can run at a higher heart rate and it will still feel the same. So we're now running at this higher heart rate, we're running faster, and it still feels the same as it was before we did this special training and we were stuck around down here. So this is the way of running faster, because actually if you're running a 10K or a marathon or a half marathon, then you're going to be running mainly in the aerobic zone here. You're not going to be going lactic or anything. So for most runners, this is a really, really important concept. So let's take a look at the first type of training. And this is where we take that level above the lactic threshold. And just for a short period of time. Remember what I said about running faster, you hold it for just a short period of time? Well, this is it. So here you've got these intervals where you're going up and then you drop back down. You come right down underneath that lactic threshold and you recover. Then you go back up again, then you come back down, up and down, up and down. And you might do a series of different length intervals and maybe increase the number of intervals over the course of a few weeks, or reduce the recovery in between. There's all sorts of ways of manipulating these variables to increase the overload. But the important thing is here, you're going over that lactic threshold. Now, physiologically, what's happening is you're giving your body that stimulus. You're creating an overload where your body is exposed to increasing levels of lactic acid. And when that happens, you're not holding it there for too long, so it's only a short while, but you're still giving it that exposure. So then later on, after the session, you don't get faster when you're training, you get faster when you're sleeping, you get faster after the workout when you're resting, giving your body all the correct nutrients that it needs. Then it starts to adapt, and it's that adaptation that's going to start increasing the lactic threshold. Basically, your body looks at it and thinks, wow, that's something that I might be exposed to again. I better do something about this. I better get a little bit stronger. And so the lactic threshold just inches up. Now, the rate of perceived exertion here, as in how hard you feel you're working, this is going to be pretty tough. Yeah, you want to be pushing yourself to 9, maybe 9.5 out of 10. You're not really going to be going to the max with most of these intervals. 9 to 9.5 is about on the money. And you need to constantly scan the body, check in with the body, ask yourself the question as to where you are and be really honest with your answer as well as to how hard you feel like you're working. So let's take a look at the second type of training to increase your running speed there, and that's threshold running. And what we're doing here is we're taking the speed up and we're actually trying to take it onto that lactic threshold line. You can see that slightly jagged line that goes a bit above and it goes back down below, a bit above, down below. And it's doing that because we don't really want to build up too much lactic acid in our body. We want to just get to that point, because now we can hold it there for a longer period of time. So we're still developing lactic acid at a fairly ferocious rate, but we're just about able to deal with that and get rid of it, and we're still giving our body that exposure. So once again, after the session, we get this adaptation and this growth where we become faster and we raise up that lactate threshold line. Now, the rate of perceived exertion, the RPE for this type of training is probably 8 to 8.5 out of 10. So a little bit lower, but you can see again, going back to our speed and time at that speed graph from earlier, the slower the speed, the lower the intensity, the longer you can hold it for. We've only dropped it down a nudge there, and we've increased the length of time that we can hold it for. So now let's go back and have a look at this. This is the aerobic curve. This is where we were before. What's happening now is we're working at about 6, maybe 6.5 out of 10. So it's a real kind of much more conversational pace. You should be able to chat to your buddy whilst you're running along here without too much trouble. And if it starts to increase too much, then you're probably moving towards that threshold zone. So that's your aerobic work. Now what happens is we've increased that lactic threshold. That allows us to increase the aerobic curve. So we're still working aerobically at about 6.5 out of 10, but we're holding a higher heart rate and consequently running faster. So let's take a summary there of the theory of faster running. First of all, you increase the speed, you reduce the time. So the faster you're running, the less time you will spend at that intensity. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing intervals or threshold running. If you increase the speed, you just reduce the time. The two are inversely proportional there. Secondly, you need to constantly monitor your rate of perceived exertion. It's very easy for your RPE to creep up above the level that you want it at, and it's also very easy for it to slip back down below where it should be. And you start feeling, it's getting a bit easy. If you're not checking in with yourself all the time, then you're not going to be getting the benefits of that specific training run. All of this is about training efficiency and getting the most bang for your buck out of your training sessions. And we're looking at intervals and threshold running as the two major sources of pace, of two different types of training session that are going to increase your running pace. Now, you need to recover with periods of slow running here, especially for interval training. If you're taking that interval pace well above your lactic threshold, if you just drop down a little bit, then you're not going to be recovered enough for the next run. So take it right down. Give yourself a good period of time for slow running, maybe even just over a walking pace. Just really drop off the pace there, and then you're ready to take it back up. Because the more recovered you are, the faster you're able to work, the harder you're able to push yourself in the next interval. And you get faster when you sleep. This is an important one to remember. You're not going to get faster when you train. You're not going to achieve any kind of strength or fitness benefits when you train. That is the stimulus. The benefits, the gains, the adaptations happen afterwards, which is why sleep is so important. You don't want to do 2 of these intense days of running back to back, because otherwise what happens is you just get diminishing returns. You deplete your body's systems, and you tee yourself up for for injuries and illnesses, as well as you deplete your immune system, as your body isn't given enough time to recover. And finally, faster running food is also important. So it's not fast food, it's faster running food, which just means you've got to pile in the antioxidants, the green veggies, the colourful veggies, fruit, all the good foods, all the good fats, just enough but not too much carbohydrate, and plenty of good quality protein as well into your diet, loads and loads of water to keep hydrated. Without all of these building blocks, these nutrients in your system as well, again, you're going to get diminishing returns from all that hard work that you put in out there on the roads. That is the theory of faster running. My name is George Anderson from intelligentrunning.com, and I will speak to you again very soon. Bye for now.